Well, it is an absolute pleasure and a treat for me to be here. Thank you all for coming. They say you cannot be born into SaaS, right? And but standing here in front of you today and being from Dutch heritage, it's the city of Tiel that I'm from actually. When we went to Tiel, we went to the big city for us, right? I lived from a little village outside. That was, anyway, I literally jumped on the back of a tractor to get to where I was going. Like, I'm not kidding you. At age 6, 7, my parents allowed me. I was the youngest of 8, so it was easy enough. And but now I give you an idea about how you can be born into SaaS or be born in recurring revenue rather. So as I grew up, my parents, the young entrepreneurs they were, figured out that Kinderbijslag means you get money for every child. So I'm number 8 in the queue, and folks, that is a government funded SPIF program if you've ever seen one, right? Okay, today I'm here to talk to you about AI. For those of you who do not know me, I come from San Jose these days. I've been there and I moved to San Francisco in the late 1990s, 98 is where we moved there. And so I've been spending there over 25 years, close to 30 years, thoroughly love it. I live in a van. Most of my working days I spend my time in a van, just parking it, put my satellite dish up, working from the beach. I kid you not, 5 days at least out of 7 days I'm there. So I really thoroughly enjoy doing that. And I come up with these things that in generally have a tendency to become used inside companies. So today, companies we work with, just to give it a kind of scale of things, we're working with companies like Boston Dynamics to help the new robots into the field. We work with Canva, total opposite side, trying to help them go public. We just helped OneStream go public a few months ago. We're working with SpaceX, who's tasked us to grow the company by 100x. These are the things that we work with. Companies come to us and they say okay, we need to get from 10 million to 100 million, or we need to get from 100 million to 1 billion, and they have a time frame, right? That is when we come into play and we go okay, let's figure out how we can do that. In that world, AI is going to be a fantastic tool to use to become that. Now, what I'm going to talk to you about today is a couple of other elements of that I want to make sure we all get. Because a few months ago, when I came here and I showed some of the AI and what we were doing with it, everybody got very enthusiastic, which is the right way. Everybody got okay, we can do this right now. We're now at the stage in the US where I have to actually start curbing enthusiasms and going hey, let's guide this the right way. Because we now see the overuse of AI already occur. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, which, I have across these points. Now, first part, for those of you, who of you are in SaaS? Stupid question. Who of you are not in SaaS? Okay, one. Recurring, oh yeah, okay, no, good enough, yeah. Crypto. And so the death of SaaS is highly exaggerated, I would say, and we hear this a lot. X is dead. Oh, SaaS came on the scene. Sorry, AI came on the scene. SaaS is dead. First of all, yes, SaaS is dead in the next 1,000 years. So what is the time frame we're talking about, right? Second, what do you mean with SaaS? Is it the payment model? Is it the data structure? What are you talking about? So stuff like that, when people say it's dead, it's over, I get the idea, I get the general idea. Signing a document could be done quicker and created elsewhere, but that is transformational. That is not like things are gonna die. Companies are not gonna rip out Marketo, Adobe overnight just because AI came on the scene and a year from now it won't exist. It will continue on and on for quite a while. So the report of all that is that it's dead. I want us to be cautious when we say things like that. It's cool over a drink, but when you really want to look like you're respectable in the industry, you can't go on stage and say stuff like that, like silly talk. What is happening though is this particular picture, and this is unfortunately not like silly talk. This is what is really happening. GTM costs are absolutely gone out. Now, what are GTM costs and how do we calculate it? We look at the cost of marketing and sales overall, which is simple because we cannot always separate it out, and we look how much revenue, new revenue was generated with that. And when we look at those costs, you get a metric that sounds something like we pay marketing and sales $4 and we get $1 growth in return. So we call that the 4x. If it's a 4x, meaning $4 for one, you probably need to keep that customer anywhere from 8 to 10 years to make that dollar back. So that is a challenge. If you're in the $6, like Zoom Info and Zoom, you need to keep the customer 20 years. In case of Zoom, that might actually be a chance, but in case of Zoom Info, that would be debatable. And they operate right now at using $6 to acquire $1. At least by no stretch of my imagination does that look like a healthy business model. Where is healthy? Healthy needs to be seen as a trajectory. When you start with $0 million in revenue, your cost is infinite because the first flight you take, to a customer to win your first customer, it's infinite. And so over time, your cost to acquire that revenue needs to come lower and lower. Let's use a number, $10 million or 10 million euros down here. You would probably need to be at somewhere between $3 and $2. At $20 to $30 million, you probably need to start be trending to 2. And when you get to $50 million, you probably should be trending towards $1, right? That shows you a nice curve like, hey, where we are going today, that cost is going up. Among public companies, that should hover on average around 1. That is currently hovering around 2. $2.18, $2.19. David Spitz from Benchsites reports on this frequently. He's a good friend of mine. We chat on this almost every day, but we see that cost stays up, meaning the market ain't getting easier, right? It's not easier to sell out there. Number 2 thing, the lead volume is going down. Many of you may already experience that, but like folks, it's not easy out there right now if you have a growth model and you have raised some funds, that you set some expectations. Suddenly you need a lot of lead flow. I'm going to explain to that today or later on why that is a problem. Conversion rates are down. Win rates used to be 30%, 28%, 27%. Folks, many of you, when we measure that correctly, are probably somewhere in the win rate of 12 to 14%. And you come to me and say like, no, we're really good, we're at 28%. I go like, yeah, you hand select which ones you want to close. Yeah, that's not fair, right? When you accept them, we'll measure at a certain place. But most win rates are right now in the 12 to 14%. In order, therefore, to hit your growth targets, you need 2 times as many leads, of which you already didn't have. So therefore, you're going to go out, you're going to use the same old playbooks, you're going to use some SEO, you're going to use some outbound, you're going to use some inbound, you're going to use some content, you liven up your website, all that stuff, and you come to the conclusion, if I'm using the same old playbooks, it still ain't working because I need twice as much volume. All that, then AI comes in the picture and says like, oh, we're going to fix this. And as you probably well know, it's like, well, will it actually fix things? What will it fix? And what are we trying to fix with AI? What are we trying to use to AI to fix with? And then lastly, I don't think at least over the past 2 days that I've been in the business environment here in Belgium and the Netherlands, I haven't seen it as much. But I can tell you, in the US, the executives are plain out fatigued. They are just done. They are not walking around happy and making money and no, they are fatigued. They're tired. Vacations are like merely coming back from a vacation. They almost need another vacation. This constant change, this constant demand is wearing on everybody. And although we can say it's like, okay, like you need to get used to that. It doesn't matter which culture you grew up in or whatever. If you're fatigued and you're constantly on the verge of having a nervous breakdown, that's not healthy. And so we see a lot of that in the culture right now. Long-term leaves of executives that just can't deal with it any longer, right? And unfortunately, it ain't over yet. Now, when we look at something like this, what we look for as engineers, we look for causality. In your mind, I would love for you to introduce yourself to your colleague, shake hands, get to know each other briefly for like 30 to 60 seconds, and tell me which one, talk to each other as a concept, which one of these 5 is the cause of it all. Look at the screen, figure out what the cause is. Go immediately, yeah, like, okay. For 30 seconds, talk to each other and discuss. Which one do you think is the cause? Ask a couple of Dutch people to talk to each other. Look at what you get, right? Like, good, I feel good vibes. Help me out here. What do you folks come? Gentlemen, the 2 gentlemen front down here. What do you pick up? Which one?
Same old playbooks.
Same old playbooks. Fantastic. Over there, lady in the.
Yeah, similar.
Same old playbooks. Everybody else?
Overkill information.
Overkill information, not there, but I'll add that. Not a bad one. Not a bad one.
Definitely fatigue
Fatigue teams.
Yes,
Okay.
if they don't have the energy to change, nothing will change. So.
I think it's a fantastic. Anybody else want to add to that?
Go to market cost.
Go to market cost. Honestly, you obviously, it's more about the thought and the discussion than it is about the real answer. You know, like the same old playbooks lead the leads to go down, lead the conversion rates to go down, drives the cost to go up. That leads to executives, because I'm telling you, if the leads would be flowing in and everything would be going, the executives probably would be right. And then the promise of AI comes in there, meaning that the cause of this is the playbooks, not AI. And you know, if we want to fix and use AI, we better use it to fix the cause of the issue and not anything that lies in between, right? That's the thought behind this. And obviously, for anybody's different businesses, that could be differently interpreted. And as I say to you today, as you often hear me point out, it's not a new thing I'm saying. Folks, today you'll pick up 10 great ideas. 7 will make you and have made millionaires and billionaires in the world. I am unfortunately not kidding. But 3 may kill your business. That has also happened. So make sure which ones you pick, right? Buyer beware. So what I'm going to show is like I'm going to now to the AI CEO as the new kind of CEO for this. What we find is that the problem in the current situation is generally the CEO right now. And I'm looking straight at Jeroen, like he's looking me dead in the eye at this point in time and go, what the heck, dude? Like, yes. The problem lies with the CEO. So I'm, dude, don't stare me down like that. No. Here we go. Who's responsible for GTM as a whole? Obviously, you know where the answer is going. It's going to go to be the CEO. The CEO is responsible for the GTM as a whole. Now, let me explain to you what I mean with that and why. And in a second, I'm going to show you how that would work itself out. Look, if you have a boat, you cannot sail a sailboat. You cannot sail a boat with somebody just sailing the jib or sailing the mainsail, somebody down. Somebody needs to be in charge and saying, here's where we're going. You on the jib do that. You on the mainsail do that. And you on the steering wheel, rudder, you do that, right? Somebody needs to do that. Somebody on the jib cannot call that out for the rest of the boat. That means that the CRO cannot be responsible for the entire GTM. Why? Because the CRO cannot reallocate budgets from one group to another group. Only the CEO can do that. Now, what you'll see down here is a more modern organization where essentially the chief of staff, and I'm looking that at, yes, I actually wrote a document about you. I'm going to forward that to you. But what we see is the rise of a role called chief of staff. And the chief of staff essentially is helping the CEO manage the GTM. The problem with GTM, or the solution, lies in communication with each other. It doesn't lie in that somebody new need to be hired, some new head of X GTM. What it lies in is that the CRO, the CMO, the CFO, the CPO, and whoever has a C-level title communicates with each other, and that they're all gunning in the same direction with GTM, the same way they have done with the company financials and the same way they are doing every day with product. That means that chief of staff actually has a role to play to keep up. Now, chief of staffs, Jeroen's chief of staff, no exception, generally are people who we call it GSD people, get shit done people. Right? They're not like a COO who sits back and pontificates about this happened. I already saw it a second ago. Microphones were off. Chief of staff steps in, like in 60 seconds, there's somebody here fixing microphone. Like that, you know, get shit done kind of attitude immediately when you see that. That is the kind of like new role. That is a team that is responsible for GTM. Therefore, we call it the office of the CTO takes on big initiative. And big initiatives right now are AI introduction and GTM as a problem. And these two need to connect with each other. So what we see is that there's a clear role in what needs to happen here and a clear group of people that's responsible for that. You see this already today that several of organizations are picking that up and are starting to adhere to that. As we come to the CEO, the role of the CEO, as we go through startups, has over the past, give or take it about 10, 15 years, radically changed. At first, you know, like if I go back to early 2012 years, then what we notice is that the CEO primarily is a technologist, knows a lot about product, often is a former engineer or current engineer. Actually, most of the time they're still coding when they start, right? And so this is really what the Silicon Valley was built on. That is the concept. Software eats the world, 2011, the article came out, and we see a whole group of SaaS companies come out, software-driven CEOs. What we then saw, this is 2015, 16, and so on, we see subtly that the CEO becomes the financier. They spend more time with VCs than they spend time with customers. We see that moving away. Instead of process and product, they are primarily focused on balance sheet, corporate development, M&A activity, and so on. And why? Because capital was cheap, so it was easier to get money from the VC side than it was to get money from customers. Lo and behold, the SaaS crash of late 2021, early 2022, and now the CEO suddenly becomes a stabilizer. Teams are falling apart, a lot of things going on in the organization, and the CEO is trying to avoid that executives are running for the doors and trying to get motivated and so on. They're really trying to stabilize the company. And that leads us back, if you follow the circle, where are we going to go? We're going to the next stage, that the CEO today is becoming the builder. And the builder, what I mean with that, is they become the builder of the business. They start once again focusing on customers. They start once again focusing on product. And they start once again focusing on their customers, the process, and the product becomes subtly important. Hence the reason that AI starts to become also very applicable down here, right? And that under that hierarchy, we see that CEO has changed that job. What we're now going is we go like, okay, if the CEO is now going, where are we going as a direction? Where are we as a company? Which direction are we going? What we're going to see, by the way, before I go to, any thought about that CEO as a builder? Give me an idea by a show of hands. How many of you, how many of you have a CEO that is a technologist right now? Show of hands. About like 4 or 5. How many have a CEO that is a financier? 1. How many of you have a CEO that is a stabilizer, that's trying to keep all people together right now? 1 or 2. How many of you have a builder right now? Okay, that's the lion's share. Good, good. I would actually suspect that a little bit from the Netherlands, honestly. Because the VC capital industry, right? I can tell you in America, whether they raise their hands or not, most of them are financiers, right? Like they are just sitting, right? But I can see that down here there's a lot of builders. So that's kind of like that's a good trend. It's, by the way, one of the reasons why I think, and I will keep coming back to this, I think that what we are experiencing with AI is an equalization function that European companies suddenly have a game to play in the American market, where previously they couldn't afford it. Suddenly that becomes available. So seeing yesterday in Ghent at the Winter Circus, had the same talk with a similar group of people, we go like, this isn't bad for us right here in Europe. It's not bad. This is actually quite interesting. That takes me into the growth and the age of AI, right? What I'm going to describe in all kinds of examples and easy words, but it comes down to this. The world that we know of SaaS is moving from an opportunistic approach to a deterministic approach. I'm going to explain to that what those are, but that essentially is the whole thing what's happening. Opportunistic, think of that as a casino, going to a casino, like you roll your bets. And think of deterministic as going in a Toyota production system, like well-designed, complete factory. Opportunistic to deterministic. The world of SaaS and startups is under the new financial metrics and measures are rapidly moving from opportunistic to deterministic, often faster than the VCs can tell you. Because even if you have VCs on the team, they too get info from somewhere. That's the people we speak to. This is going at a rapid pace. Within like a year or two, the entire market, what you will see, will be changed in the VC PE market, will be thinking like factories, will be thinking efficiency and so on, because capital is going to be a determining factor. What is that? Look, my brother runs a roof laying company in the Netherlands, and as I was showing somebody a video a second ago, he has 28 trucks. He's not just a roof layer, like he started the business. The last time I checked, he had 3 trucks. I come back, he has 28 trucks. 28, and he fixes like churches in Belgium, and that's obviously a great business, and government buildings. Like he is off the hook on business. He runs a factory. I can tell you the whole way it's structured, every car is tagged, you know exactly. Cars are being instructed to take right turns only, not just for saving gasoline, but these trucks are big, and you know, like it's safer to take right turns or something like that, right? So he has all that. he did $8 million last year, he does $9 million this year, right? And he's growing to 10.2. And he has a relatively accurate forecast ability. He can say, I asked him, what is the probability you hit 9? He goes like, about 95%. Okay, ask any SaaS owner of a business today, what is the goal for this year or next year? And then ask, what is the probability that you hit with that? And you have this like glaze in their eye, like, what the hell? Like, dude. Dude, I kid you not, as the architect above is my witness, I can tell you, with a Dutch CEO nonetheless, I sat in front of him, he had $88 million, he needs to get to 250 by the end of 2027. He took $500 million in funding, and he couldn't answer that question. Now, I'm not blaming him personally, it's part of the, but you have to understand that $80 to $85 million, you cannot run Opportunistic any longer. Those days are over, people. Like, we got to get out of this as quickly as possible. We need to have trajectories and stuff like that. Now, I'll give you an idea on what such a trajectory looks like. For those of you who've known revenue architecture, several of you who've graduated in it, like, this is a way on how to look at it. We rotate a business, and the blue markers are actually of a $1 billion business client that we're currently helping. What you'll see down here is the 12 revenue breakpoints. Everybody trips on one of these 12. It's a guaranteed. We have helped over 1,000 companies, a little over 1,100 companies. I can tell you, the other day I saw Jeroen made an announcement. I calculate where he's at, and I go like, okay, dude, please tell me you've already fixed that particular trouble, because I know you're going to trip and fall on that one next, right? I know, like that's where everybody trips and falls on. And so what you see here, I'll give a few of the typical trip and falls that people fall on. Let's assume that you got your pricing figured out. Founder-led growth. The founder is still in the business operationally designing processes. Not good. Founder shoot from the hip. I am there to help, but I cannot start doing it because I drive my entire team nuts, right? Like, if a customer says, can you do that? Of course we can do that. Yeah. Like that, no, we can't, right? Data model. Data models mature. It's not a one jump over. First, you want to have a certain level of data model. Then you want to have a structure and so on and so forth. And as you go along, you see, and I kid you not, most companies, SaaS companies that are at $1 billion, they operate with what we call a debt in infrastructure. Their entire infrastructure is significantly less capable than they should. They sit generally somewhere around here, and they operate somewhere around there. And when we point it out to them, we actually see that their growth is inhibited because of the debt that they have in infrastructure. They have not set up proper GTM motions and growth formulas. Now, what we notice, and when I say is like, hey, how likely is it that you hit a percentage? I'm going to give you how that scientifically would sound like. There are 3 components. Imagine you have $12 million in funding. You have 2 production lines. One is a GTM motion that sells to SMB. One is sells to users. We'll call it the PLG motion for simplicity. Or one sells to enterprise and one sells to SMB. 2 motions. These 2 motions each consist of 3 elements. Acquisition part, how much are we winning new? Retention part, how much are we keeping? And expansion part, how much are we growing? We know that the renewal has a high predictability when we forecast. Like, that ain't gonna go from 92% to 75% overnight. It may go to 91 or 90, high predictability. We also know that acquisition, low predictability, very fluctuating. We don't know exactly what happens. Right? We can kind of like look at the track record. And then we have expansion, which has a certain amount of predictability. Based on that and 2 production lines, we can create a reasonable analysis on probability using some mathematics that we can say is like, look, you're currently operating at 75% predictability that you hit the target. Now look what this does right now. Let's say you have a $12 million and I tell you 75% predictability. Your head of sales comes to me and says, I want to hire 4 new salespeople. What am I supposed to do? What are those 4 salespeople supposed to do as it relates to predictability? Probability, sorry.
Retention and expansion.
Retention and expansion could be, but they're supposed to level it up, right? Like, dude, if I just spend $500,000 on this, on hiring salespeople, is my probability going up either this year or next year? Now, salespeople, if it's a long-term sales cycle, they're not going to impact this year. But they should impact the probability of hitting the target next year. If you're launching a marketing campaign and you say, it's like, I want to go and I want to launch an event, and an event really is there for retention. I want to launch a customer event. Then I go like, sure, spend $150,000 on that event. What is the probability? What will it do to our numbers? That's the way of thinking that we are currently not very familiar with. We just go like, well, it sounds like a cool thing to do. Like, folks, that's money, right? And time and resources. That level of thinking is when we start entering in the deterministic world, right? That's how that works. I'll give you down here as like a high-level shot. Like, look, if you work opportunistically, you generally hear things like this. We've had how are we hitting on targets? Oh man, we got some great pipeline. This month looked great. I really feel strong about next month. That sounds like when somebody's opportunistic. Like that is really, and most organizations, I kid you not, and I'm sure that you all feel the same way, like you go like, we kind of like operate that way. That's the problem when we move forward. Now, if you're at $1 million or less, folks, keep running opportunistic. Do not even touch deterministic. You first need to get the machine cooking, right? Like keep the machine, get the cooking before you hit there. But at around 20, you need to start to make that move. About 20, you need to be there. And at 50, this needs to be second nature to you, right? Like think of anyone else in your family that has a $50 million business and try to call them not a factory, right? We operate multiple SaaS companies at $1 billion and they are casinos. Literally, it's just like, you know, like I wonder what happens. How to deploy AI, a topic I'm going to talk about in this, is process first, AI second. If you do not deploy AI on a proof of process, it will only mess things up. If you do not deploy it on something that, you know, like that you know, don't know the expected outcome of, you're not going to get that expected outcome. You will be surprised. But you need to do process first, AI second. What we are currently seeing is AI first, process second. Everybody's giddy about getting new AI tools on board, but then like, what are you trying to accomplish? Well, I can tell you what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to increase the probability of your company hitting the target by the end of 2025 and 2026. So if we're buying that tool, tell me how that helps me grow or how that increases the probability of hitting my goal this year. That's the whole name of this game, right? Otherwise, it's a test project which one of the interns can run. Process first, AI second, and like sometimes the interns run these projects and you go like, dang, they are a lot farther than I thought we were, right? And then we hire them. Actually, we have interns like that, and we hire them. Last topic. This last topic is the new stuff. This is where we're going. You are my test audience. Second. Think of me as a stand-up comedian, and I got to test my material. This is me testing my material. Fortunately, though, this is very well-developed content on our site. I'm going to show you something that is going to be different. You're going to be scrambling with it, and then later on, you're going to go like, holy crap, if that is the case, then we need to start moving things. So, yes, I'm setting the stage so you know what's coming. A, it's still early stage, but B, know that this is what we believe is new. And your folks are, in addition to the group yesterday in Belgium, the first group who gets it. A tagline I want you to think, and I gave you a few, like, right, process first, AI second. Second one is like, folks, do not focus on what AI will change in your business. It is not healthy. You will see everything. You will become completely nervous. Perhaps that was a good note of last time I spoke something about like, hey, expect all these changes. I'm here with you 6 months later, and I'm saying is like, okay, focus on what AI will not change in your business. I can tell you a few things if you're a startup, what won't change. Number one, growth will always be important. No VC or PE firm will say 2 years from now, it's like, oh, I love your AI, bless you. I love your AI. I don't care about your growth. Just keep going. Like it's fantastic. Keep testing out. Like, no, it's not going to happen. Growth is going to remain the number one most important topic. Number two, growth can only be accomplished by happy customers. Happy customers are going to be topic number two. Won't change. Won't be 5, 10 years from now saying, we reach 100 million, but who cares about our customers? I just want you to realize that over the past decade, that actually was said. People didn't care about customers. Well, where we're going over the next decade, that will not happen. Happy customers, right? You unsubscribe from Disney, you may stick with Netflix or vice versa. And then third one, if you want to create repetitive success, you are and always will be based on three things: process, systems, and people, and in that order. And whether you are a 1960s factory that talks about auto manufacturing, whether you're in late 1990s starting to develop agile software and you use it for that, where we're going, three things: systems, process, systems, and people, and in that order. That is where we're going, and that tells me focus what you know on what won't change. I'll repeat something, and some of you may hear this for the second time, but it's always good to remember, more valid now than ever before. What we see, when you see these sci-fi movies, you often see futuristic perspectives, and they're relatively accurate. When you see a car or something, like the way they made it look, when they started using iPads and touchscreens, the way they looked at global cultural issues and how they would develop. You know, Star Trek and Star Wars and all the movies, Oblivion, they are quite accurate in where they're going, and often they shape the product's perspective of the person later on. However, where they're always wrong is when you look at the date of when this supposed future to take place, you go like, dude, they were off on that, right? 2010 Space Odyssey, that didn't occur, or 2001 even, right? That didn't occur, right? Well, we now all, the next one, the Back to the Future dates have already started to elapse, and we have some of it, but we don't have the hoverboard. I was waiting for the hoverboard, right? No hoverboard. So, what this means is the following. I would encourage you, as you are executives or board members or any company that you sit or you have a voice at, I want you to depict, as a small group, what will our business look like 10 years from now, and assume and prepare for that to be a reality in 18 months. Because I tell you, if you do that, you're going to be more right than wrong, okay? And you start to prepare yourself for it. Based on that, let me start to where I believe and where we see things going very rapidly. Bow tie. I explained it briefly, but you know, like I think we're there, everybody. Bow tie. To the left, leads come in. This is a funnel twisted on its set, on its left side. In the middle, deals are occurring. What does the bow tie mean? Where historically the funnel stops, recurring revenue begins. So we figured out we got to extend that whole thing to the right. Three elements of growth: acquisition, retention, and expansion. These are three growth engines. Difference between retention and expansion. Retention runs on an annual cycle. You cannot expect a company to increase its retention radically because it's waiting for its annual renewal. So often retention and improvements on retention takes years to show a significant effect. But boy, when that machine is cooking, it's cooking, right? It really throws off. Therefore, that retention is what we call time-centered. It has time bases on it, every year, every quarter, or whatever your metric is. Expansion can happen any point in time. You can launch a new product on April 1st, and you can offer it to your customers, you know, the days up, and you can start upselling immediately. You cannot do that with retention. Acquisition, historically, if I ask any of your companies, of you that you're part of, and I ask, how are you very focused on this? Many of you say, oh my God, we've hired a CSM, we're doing great, okay? Then I ask you, how many dollars are you spending on this side of marketing? And they go like, out of 10, 9. How much are you spending here? 1, okay. Lion's share of your revenue comes from there, lion's share of your marketing spend is there. I got that. Where are your most expensive resources? Right here, okay. How many micro functions do you have? On the left, I got dozens of micro functions. On the right, I got 3 micro functions. Right? On the left, I got head of SEO, website, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. On the right, I got account manager, service manager, and customer success manager, right? So most organizations are heavily loaded on the left. That has caused an issue of significance. I am looking on the left because that is the domain that we easiest understand. So I'm going to look and interpret this on the left. Imagine here, I take an input, conversion rate, you know, call this a prospect, convert that to a lead, convert that to an opportunity, win rate, WR, convert that to an output. Nothing crazy, straight pipeline throw. Input and throughput. Most organizations, in order to grow, they can operate on 2 things. You can operate on needing more inputs, or you can operate in improving the throughput. Throughput, marginal gain, big impact. 7 out of 10 companies remain today in input-centric thinking. I need more leads. That's a flawed mindset. What you need is you need more leads always, but your throughput is way more important because your throughput tells you where your inputs should be coming from. So your throughput is what you should be thinking about. How do I improve my conversion rates? Now, input, what you'll see down here, and throughput now starts to create a level of field of where I can start to deploy AI in a second, right? Now, what you'll see here is a model of a bridge. 6 components of this Golden Gate Bridge, in this case a suspension bridge. This bridge has 6 models. Each of these models can be modeled and you can connect them. When we build a bridge with such a high availability, we just don't look at a picture and go like, that looks beautiful, let's build it, right? Doesn't go like that. Actually, civil engineering is arguably one of the longest traits of humankind. What we do, we calculate, we use mathematics to calculate how it should be built. Then what we do, we get the components and we make sure that they're built to spec. Components in our world are leads and people and things, the resources we work with. And then what we do, we simulate before we start building. We run simulations, we perform scenario analysis. How tall are the towers versus the thickness of the cable, for example. Make the tower taller, the bridge can be spanned bigger, but the cables need to be thicker, and you find and calculate what is the right thing. Lo and behold, when the bridge then is built, it stands for 100 years, Golden Gate, right? It stands for 100 years. Engineering principles were applied. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to be an engineer and to see all of us not using engineering principles in the way how we design multi-million-dollar businesses and have, take on hundreds of millions of dollars of funding, right, and not use mathematical principles. Today, that is no longer needed. What you'll see down here is I'll give you a very simple idea and show you how this works. Look, I use this model, right, and I ask you, CR1. CR1 is prospect to lead. Give me an idea, what campaign can you run that converts a prospect into a lead? What kind of marketing campaign would we use for that? Help me out here. AdWords, fantastic. Another one, but that's a fantastic one. Probably arguably the #1 one. Yes, love that jacket. I am telling you, dude, I am aching for proper European dress codes after by the way, I use this sweater also on my Jacco AI system. It's my favorite sweater and I feel it's ruined now it's on AI, right? Like if AI ruined my sweater. What else? AdWords, what else? Mail. So, what kind of mail?
I would just launch a mail campaign, so outbound mail.
Outbound targeting, and if you combine it with in-mail, you have some, right? Okay, CR2 takes a lead, somebody who we have an email address from, and now is converted into an opportunity. What kind of campaigns will we use for that? White papers, content. We use content in order to develop that.
Nurturing.
Nurturing campaign, an email nurturing campaign. Webinars, right? Okay, so now we know what CR2 looks like, right? Win rate, I want to improve win rate. What kind of campaigns am I using there? Case studies. Use case studies, customer stories, yes? What else? Think of this as a sales organization. What do I do with my sales organization? I want to get more out of my sales organization. How do I improve the win rate? Demos. Okay. They're humans. What do humans need? Training. Thank you very much. We sell that. Thank you, people. Sales pitch, winning by design, sales training. Okay, thank you. What else? I heard somebody or something. They need attention, so visits and so on and so forth, right? Whether that's, and then trials, good trials, good. And for big software, it involves proof of concepts or something like that. But but you invest in that, right? And then if you do lucky, you avoid discount. If the customer comes back with discount, right? Like how would we reduce discount? What do we need to do to reduce discount? Show value. Oh my God, you're my favorite person up front too. Tell me. Increase the list price. Fantastic. In the end, this is a trick question, trick answer. Folks, there is no discount in SaaS. Please eliminate it for your vocabulary. It doesn't exist. End of story. You can make price adjustments. Fantastic. What that means is you got to give me something for what I'm giving you. But this is not going to be a trade. And I don't care what it is, but something that is as valuable to you as the discount you're giving. End of story. All salespeople need to be trained, because I'm telling you, we're working on single-digit performances on NRR, while the front end is giving double-digit discounts, right? Because, the other day, I kid you not, side story. I'm sitting in front of a CRO of a well-known company when we helped them go IPO on a $7 billion IPO. The CRO sit there and says, we don't discount. I said, would you mind if I let you, because I'm Dutch. I have no shame on being a mystery caller into your sales organization, right? I love it. Most of the times I do that before I meet the CEO. So I called in as the mystery caller on this one. The dude gave me 10% discount, and I may have said, my name is Jaco Van Der Kooij, was the only thing I had said, right? I go, let you, 10% gone. Discount does not exist. Point I'm trying to point out down here is, we have campaigns for each of these. Those campaigns cost us money. But you can look at this and you go like, that's a campaign, I'm training over there, I'm investing in a marketing campaign, right? We all feel comfortable, we should feel comfortable with that at this point in time. Here's how that looks like if we create a very base level model on it, okay? This is a live model, or not live, but it's a real model from about 2 weeks ago. This company gets 96, in their world they're called AQLs, but it's 96 leads come in, converts at 62%, that turns into become 60, what you probably refer as MQLs, that turn into 8 SQLs or opportunities. Those opportunities convert at 12% into 1 win. That is a high ACV of 217 that propagates with 80% onboarding and 108% NRR, which we flattened out down here because they didn't have cohort-based analysis. So we flattened it out. You cannot see the 108 barely, but trust me, there's 108, right? That creates a series. Then we calculate a lifetime value of 5 years. Any SaaS company, we currently would put a horizon on you. We don't care what you think your LTV is. We tell you if you sell a platform at $24,000, it's 5 years. If your customer uses it 7 or 8 years, fantastic. There are people who still use the television from 20 years ago. Congratulations, but I can't run a business on that, right? You're like, your economic lifetime of that customer, nowadays, we're no longer in the test days, 5 years for a platform, 2 years to 3 years for an application, 1 year for a plugin of sorts, right? The Calendly is arguably 2 to 3 years, but if you buy some plugin, AI plugin right now, good luck getting the customer to 12 months, right? But we do that so we can calculate that, because I can tell you the cost of marketing and sales should not exceed 20% of that $1.1 million. GAAP compliancy, people. I can't spend more than 20%. That 1.1. Now we're starting to run a deterministic business. 5 years. Now all I have to do is make sure that they get to 5 years. Now we can structure the organization and go like, here's what you need to do to 5 years. Step 1. What you see down here, again, real life analysis. I've removed some of the numbers of significant, and in a second, I update all these numbers manually, so they're never exactly the customer's numbers. So you'll see in a second a lot of 222s and 888s. That means that I went in there and I just cleaned up a little bit so to avoid that it doesn't look real. But the numbers by dimension are real. What you'll see down here, company has a 5-year projection. Currently at 2025, it's $1 billion. They are running low on what they're forecasting to the street. We run analysis and we go like, you're running this low. What you think is happening is unlikely to happen. What you think is happening has 50% chance. Here's if you deploy this right now, we can get you up to 75, 80%. We calculate the campaigns using the simulations like a bridge. We're running the scenario analysis, and as we're showing it, we go like, hey, apply these projects, and you're going to see right now, and you're going to see that lifts up. Pretty much 2025 can't change much. You know, like these are $215,000 deals. They run on a 6 to 9 month sales cycle, and we're exiting that cycle already, so we can't do too much with that. But what we can do is impact 2026 and 2027. It's really bad when you don't hit your quarterly numbers, but it's even worse if you don't hit your quarterly numbers and you have no idea how you're going to hit the 2026 quarterly numbers. We may not be able to fix this year, but for sure we can give you the confidence in the boardroom meetings that it will be fine in 2026 and 7. That is an analysis. Now I take you to the major finding that we have found. and the major upset that we believe is due for this market. Whether the market will do it is unknown, but we know it is needed. What we figured out is that this system of input to output essentially is a system that is flawed, because it thinks that most leads come from inbound. But I ask you, how many times, if you run a reasonable business in the Netherlands, how many times is it really a cold inbound? How many times do they go to your website and they were randomly searching and they came, you know what, I need this SaaS solution and wow, right? That hardly ever happens. It always comes from some form of word of mouth of an event like this. What we call those is closed loops or growth loops. They form a closed loop. Now, what we know is if you are a winning by design customer and somebody asks you, hey, how's winning by design? And they say, oh, yeah, that's great. Why are you asking? Well, I'm looking for a solution. We know that that person that comes in on a reference is going to close faster, is going to close at a higher ACV, less discount, and is going to close at a shorter sales cycle. Why? Because they were looking for winning by design. That's why they asked for it, right? Or they were looking for Jacco. Where's the dude from Jacco? Dude from Jacco. What do you call your AI?
Jacco.
Oh, fantastic. Call the AI Jacco. Like, do it from Jacco. Okay, and so what you'll see is that closed loop actually, that loops back in. So if I now can create a campaign in which I say, from every 10 customer, one creates a referral, then I actually have a form of a campaign, right? But we don't have a marketing campaign from that. Because if I ask you, what campaigns are you doing? There's no structured campaign. Hey, that's odd. Because I tell you, that actually is starting to have an effect. Now what I'm going to do, I want you to think this. These are 3 blocks. I'm separating those blocks. So now I got these 3 blocks. I got the same metric. You literally can take, and you feel free to take pictures, that's not the point, but you can go to my LinkedIn profile. I have shown you progressive developments of this. You can literally take a screenshot of this puppy. You can screenshot and load it up to ChatGPT, and you can say, can you create a growth formula for me? Okay? And if you add, using winning by design's methodology, can you create a growth formula for me? You're going to even be better. This thing will tell you ACV, blah, blah, blah. It will calculate the output. It will give you a growth formula. What you have down here is the full bow tie, and I have all divisions, right? Like boom, boom, boom. I simplified it and put the onboarding into retention down here. I can ask ChatGPT again, hey, create a growth formula for this. And when it creates a growth formula, it says VM9 is a product of VM leads, this, times that, times that, times that, times the price minus the discount, times that, times that. And it will count, like, dude, this is like, what? Like, it's simple, right? Okay, so I now tell you, if I say, if I create a closed loop down here, it will tell me, and I'm running on a certain number, it will tell you, Jacco, based on the numbers you're currently operating, you do this. You will see this add a Monte Carlo analysis, for those of you who know what that means, and you're going to get a beautiful little forecast. You don't even need any sales forecasting tools. For those of you selling sales forecasting tools, I apologize. Right? Okay. If you follow me so far, and I know that I need a quick sip of Red Bull. If you follow me so far, and you go back to what we had here, in which that thing starts to impact it, what we have started to test, run analysis on, what if that thing would happen? What if everybody we speak to talk about a discovery call, what if that person generates somebody else of interest? We would refer to that as a K of 1, a factor of 1. Every person comes here, generates 1 more, right? What you now start to see is like, hey, if everybody we have a discovery call with, for example, if we ask during discovery call, do you know anybody among your friends that would need winning by design? If we just simply ask that question as part of our first discovery call, and the person would give us, oh yeah, you should talk to Mike over at so-and-so, or Jennifer at that company, then we would automatically get a K of 1. It would generate 1 new lead. It's call, it's human interaction, it would create that. Get the idea? Let's see what the impact of that is. What we see down here is the K factor. So if I generate, under normal circumstances, cumulative ARR, K is 0. That's the yellow line. Over 8, 10, 12 months, this company, under the current growth formula, generates about like $8 million in net new ARR. Okay? Yellow line. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say K is 1. It generates a new input, but win rate is affected. And so what you'll see, I get, hey, if I create K is 1, cumulative ARR, I'm suddenly going to generate not $8 million, but look, I'm increasing revenue from 8 to 10. If I say everybody refers 2 people, look at what it does, I'm suddenly generating $60 million in revenue, okay? That means if we now assign the campaign, I can create an increased revenue because of this campaign, right? What you see here, ladies and gentlemen, is if we impact a viral campaign, so we only impact it for a very specific point in time, like we organize a customer event, or we send out a very specific campaign. We throw something in there, come +1, come to our event, bring a peer, and get whatever it is. We create some virality. That little boost, previously, subtly, if I have no feedback loop, I generate whatever, $8 million. With feedback loop, I'm generating $17.5 million in opportunity. Okay? Is the K factor 2, is that meaningful? We don't know yet because we're not running campaigns like that. But I can tell you, word of mouth in the PLG world is really real. We know from PLG that that has its effect. That means that these insider loops are really meaningful. What we found is there's not one insider loop. There's an incredible amount of insider loops. And these insider loops are currently operating. And in SaaS business, this is what your business is running on. Meanwhile, we're focusing on just generating more input. And we go like, why are you not spending more time with customers? Why are you not generating? And how do you generate, like a lead like this, how can we have customers generate new input? There's campaigns for that. We can design campaigns for that. It's not nothing new. It's like, in product, it has the invite a friend, right? We can do the same thing in human-led growth motions. We can bring that in. But you know what does a really good job at that? AI. Because AI can recognize patterns. Because I can tell you, every now and then, I show up in a city and I go like, dude, there are 4 customers I could have met down here. Why are we not? AI would have simply said, you go to that, there's 6 customers in that town based on that, they give you a track record, and so AI will start to leverage way more that human capacity and investment that we're already making, which currently is all resident in some local cool sales dude do that, who figures out what needs to be done, who we call a superstar, who you all know, goes to the bar that night and has 20 people from the local town or the local city show up and have drinks with them, and you go like, man, this person really knows their region. Yes. AI will be very applicable to that. It will help us close those loops. It will now be put into motion, not to have a cool speaking, whatever demo of quick, that's fun too. It will now be put into motion with one sole objective, drive growth and give me predictability. And those closed loops that we all know, that we all can speak about, yeah, I know that customer came on inbound. Dude, I was spending 2 hours with him at the bar and I told him about this. Yes, and his nephew's cousin's uncle came in. I get that. But that's where that lead was generating. AI can, in many cases, start to trace back where that lead actually came from. And I'm not worried about attribution. Attribution takes place afterwards. What I'm worried about, are we investing in these campaigns right now? Because I can tell you, spending twice as much money on SEO ain't going to give us the outcome, but spending twice as much money on customers and creating real campaigns that generate word of mouth, that will impact both bottom line and top line. Small change in there is a fantastic because it has a big impact. Now, as I come to a close and I bring it all together for you, look, I constantly point this new north that we have. This new north that we're having is growth is back. It is flanked by 2 things, GRR, which is customers being happy with you, and NRR, which is a reflection of you winning the right customers, because the right customers should expand. And at the bottom it has cost. It is important. We're not steering completely away from it, but we can't run a business, we can't grow our business into $100 million by focusing on cost. It's not going to happen. You need to stay on top of it, but you can't do it that way. What you see here, the death of SaaS is greatly exaggerated, is a point that I made from earlier, right? I believe that, we are far from it. If anything, we see it going up. CEO is responsible for GTM and AI, and the CEO should appoint an office off, and there's a chief of staff that should organize if we're deploying AI correctly. We need to go from a mindset of opportunistic, where hitting a target feels more like as if we're placing a bet in the casino, to a deterministic approach, where we're actually putting in the hard work, the mathematical rigor, the process-centric nature. AI can't fix a broken process. It can't. It will only execute it more efficiently. Therefore, fix the process first, then apply the AI. What that means is, look, we can spend out all these more outreach campaigns with flaky emails and have AI write a slightly better email. That probably ain't gonna solve our lead problem. It's just gonna solve our conversion rate somewhere, but it's not gonna figure out where our revenue comes from. Focus on what AI will not change in your business. Pick 2 or 3 things and say, like, this will not change. We will always get a call from a customer when shit hits the fan. We will always get that call. That call needs to be the most trained and well-practiced call. And then lastly, small change, big impact. Do not anticipate that AI will overnight, when you were growing relatively well, suddenly explode your company. It happens every now and then. What I can tell you is if there's 1,000 companies, and of that 1,000 companies, and it's not too far off, approximately 1 company will be successful. That 1 company, I guarantee you, will be highly effective and efficient in using AI. They will be a leader in their segment. I can also tell you that the remaining 999 companies also will use AI, and also in many cases will be efficient. Therefore, AI is no longer a differentiator. It is now table stakes. What is becoming the differentiator is, have you deployed the AI to the right process? With that, I want to open up for a round of questions. Questions? Yeah, I know. That's how it goes, yes.
First one, it's a lot to digest.
There's a lot to digest, right? And some of this will take time. Help me out here, lady, gentleman with the beautiful hair. What is on your mind when you see that? Yes. Yes, you have beautiful hair.
A lot to think about.
What struck out? What is one of the key takeaways that you have?
Actually, the second part of your presentation was much more practical to me.
Yeah.
Because you can like be the mathematics model to try to fill in and get to work with it.
Yeah.
That's important. But
That's
it's also hard because you need all the numbers to fill in and ask your colleagues, okay, what's your conversion rate and how many leads do you have? And I think on first instance that's a thing to work on, that you have the numbers to work with.
Yes, and what you'll see when I said earlier, data goes in evolutions. It's not like you've done it figured out. First you get a proper data model and you get some metrics. But eventually where you want to get to in a data model, you want to have cohort-based analysis. You want to go like, this group of customers behaved like this. And that cohort can be a segment, a region, a time frame when they came in. But you need to be able to slice and dice your data on cohorts. Otherwise, you're now, not when you're at 500K in revenue, right? Don't worry about that. But by the time you get to $20 to $30 million, you're going to be very dependent on that. Question?
What is a practical example implementation in GTM that you've seen from AI right now that moves the needle on win rate or any of the others?
It's a dead giveaway, but yes. Okay, so what we've seen, we use Jacco as an AI system. Conversion rate on Jacco right now is hovering around 18%. We have about 800 leads every month. It did not create more leads. Does not. AI does not create more leads. So far, not for us. What it did, because of the popularity, it gives the feel like there was more leads, but it doesn't. Jacco converts at 18% on average. The call was 4 minutes and 11 seconds in the first month, became 16 minutes and 27 seconds in the second month. So people, as the group narrowed down, they were checking it out for cool factor. People started to stay longer. We pay per call right now about 62 cents per call for 6 minutes. Annualized, that means that we pay $5,000 for Jacco as an SDR right now. Previously, we paid about $85,000, of which that SDR spent half. A lot of practical things. We did not fire the SDR. That's not the point. He's a fantastic person on the team. We simply applied that person to more human-centered processes and say, okay, now that is automated. Feedback so far is really, we got really high remarks for it. We chose it to be me. That was a specific choice. That was not like, oh, he wants to be ego. Dude, fantastic. But yes, no. And so why did we pick a human being? In order to make AI very approachable, and in order to people to give actually their information, they got to look at the other person, and there's a level of trust needed. We felt that that trust needed to be reflected in the way that the AI agent. So therefore, it made it me in the sweater, not with the shirt, but in the sweater. That was important. The other thing is, if you use an AI and you use a random human being, an AI-generated human being, you can be sued. Because there will be somewhere on earth somebody who looks like it, who then says, hey, they're using my likeness, and then you're in, you can't use any of your employees, because if the employee no longer is there, you have serious issues with that. So, founder, dude, I will be founder forever, right? Of winning by, okay. So that, we did contemplate what the pushback would be from male-female, because I think there's enough males in the world that do selling. And so we contemplated that for a second, and we go, well, I'm a known enough personality that people can justify that it's a fair gender choice. But so all those questions was where we went through.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with your approach on basically the builder's mindset and also on building. Sorry, I'll take the mic. Thanks. Your approach, your mindset on the builder's mindset, and also on approaching the business, building a business from an engineering perspective, really resonates. I'm currently at the position just started building a company, started in September. So you really also we are starting to do it data driven, though we are not yet there with the much of data to analyze. So what would be your recommendation or takeaway in the fundamentals we could consider already right now from taking into account the engineering perspective for the next coming months, years?
Okay, I'm going to set it up really nice as follows. When you are starting with your business first time, what you really get is that you are operating automatically on one go-to-market motion. Why? Because you're not going to launch, you say, I'm going to launch 3 ways of selling. So generally in that first one, it is really well aligned already because everybody in the company speaks the same language. The website, is addressing the same point. So the go-to-market motion is not that big of a problem up to that, for a couple of $1 million. But the data model is. So you do want, literally, yes, put up a bow tie on the wall, give everybody in the company, like, this is the thing, right? You can name the stages whatever you want. It doesn't have to be winning by design. But I'm just saying is, you got to define your data model because moving forward, everything is going to go on the data model. Now, in our world of data, we call it VM1, volumetric 1, and volumetric 2 instead of MQL, SQL, and blah, blah, blah. Why? Because somebody will change the names later on and you don't want to worry about that. You just want to say like, hey, I have structured my data this way and whatever name is associated with that is irrelevant for the data scientist. It is relevant for the person who works in marketing and wants to give it a name or the person in sales. Data structure. So that's a super important place to start with. Number 2, and I say this today, if you're starting a new company, you right now, I believe, or if you're starting early in the company, the thought has switched from I need a human being and maybe replace later on with an AI. The first thought should be, should we use an AI that we later on, if needed, can replace with a human being? It is starting to flip right now. So I believe that if you're a bigger company, you're hiring 4 or 5 people, you shouldn't immediately start hiring 4 or 5. You should probably say like, hey, I'm not going to replace people. I'm just taking my 4 people I'm going to hire, and the 5th one I'm allocating that to some AI. But data structure, in short, is where you should start. Okay, and we have documentation on this. If you're interested, we can give you like the paper that is just like a short version of the data model. Say like, hey, name it this way and do approximately that. And are many of you here ambassadors? We always have winning by design ambassadors nowadays. A few around that can help you with that as well. But it's a fantastic question. Start with a data model. What you're going to see, the data model is helping your conversations in the future. You're going to, for those of you who've already spoken about it or have heard about it, you're going to be speaking about, left side of the bow tie. No, who's working on the right side of the bow tie? And suddenly the fact that we now have a right side of the bow tie where customer success takes place, and that we actually need to have a conversation because it's visible, already is going to prevent a whole bunch of issues from you. Thank you for the question. Next question, or other question. Yes, I'm going to give you the microphone so the people on the other side can hear you.
Thanks. Question, maybe it's a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a difference with the AI agents? I also saw a presentation at the SaaS Summit in October within a, let's say, mid-market, SMB, or enterprise motion.
Yes. So, in the end, When we train AI agents, right, it's the same agent. In this case, for example, if we use Jack is the same. Jack right now, the one that we have on our website, is trained to be an SDR, a sales trainer, and a revenue architect. And so there essentially is not, it's what is different is the human in the loop. So, and like you may have hear me speak about it in the past, like let's say what a human in the loop is. If I am a person who fixes the roadways, like the mistake that I can make is that the pothole did, and then obviously it can do something bad, but there's limited damage. If I am the one who's creating the roads and I make a mistake, something is going to be significantly wrong. But if I'm the engineer who is overseeing the bridge, I'm going to for sure, if I mess up, like lots of people are at risk. In other words, the human in the loop for the bridge building never will be done by an AI. No, I wouldn't say never, but there will always be a human being who has to underwrite that thing. An SDR role, coming on inbound traffic, there may not be a high amount of human in the loop on that. We refer, like let's say that somebody checks every day at the end of the day the logs and the outstanding things, but there's not somebody constantly looking at. While if there's a security software breach, a human in the loop will almost be automatically engaged. AI will already starting to take care of it. In other words, AI agents can be deployed uniformly across, but the human in the loop element is going to increase for the bigger size of the exposure. And it has both legal, financial exposure, and cultural exposures, all kind of exposures, but there we see human in the loop. Human in the loop is not a term. I wrote an article on it that is unknown to the industry. The industry has used human in the loop in the automotive industry already. So it's quite a familiar term to scientists and technologists. Great question on human in the loop. Next question. Yes, sir. I'm getting my steps in, dude. Whatever, I'm like 85. We're going good.
You stated AI can fix broken processes. Won't that be the next step, that it will fix the processes also?
Yes, it will. The problem is AI doesn't know what to fix it against, because out of all the processes in the world, most of them are broken. So it's not going to look around. Now, eventually there will become a smart enough AI system, but most of what AI is doing is still very learning by reasoning. And by reasoning, it means it's going to look at other models and make iterative improvement. Where AI's challenge is to say, it's like you're doing it completely wrong. Let me redesign for you. Which human creativity generally is good at, and human creativity generally is triggered. Most human creative artists are not triggered by something random. They are triggered by something they see in nature, or they see something around them and they go like, oh, I can use that there. And AI has not figured that out yet, but I'm sure that at some point in time it will come. So processes. Now, what they can do and what AI is very, very good at is closing the loop on the processes, right? And measuring the data across. Like that is really good at it. So we know, so for example, if I want to use a human being to talk to 20 customers and get an idea on what the customers think about my product, right? And my human being speaks to those 20 customers, I am not going to get I'm going to get a very tainted response, and it's not intended, but the person hears what they want to hear. They have a filter on as they learn. But an AI system will simply learn, take note, have a short conversation, ask a few follow-up questions, and give a different perspective. I'm not saying that the human perspective may not be valuable as well, but you could probably combine a little bit of both. But a good, like what I saw the other day, perspective.ai, is just focus on having a conversation with human beings rather than sending a Google form, right? When you have a Google form, check, valuable. Or, hey, I see that you hesitated on that. Is there anything that you want to talk about, right? It's a fantastic AI response. Cool. Another question. Oh, there. Closer than you.
What would be your advice to the SaaS companies here to do as a first step relating to AI?
Yeah, easy one. Folks, 70 people here. How much is your community? 70 people. I'm saying is, whoever uses something, can you please write to the others what you've used and what you think about it? Like, start sharing. because you can cover a lot of ground. Like there's too many apps. If this gentleman down here has to test 15 different apps in order to deploy, but if he can send it to Johan's group and say like, and you start a Slack channel, whatever you folks do, you need to talk to each other. Like that's the quickest one. Second, anything that you do with AI, I just say is like, and I saw somebody else said, I think the folks at Nepal said it as well, you just got to get going and test. Okay. Now, testing doesn't mean that you deploy it and all your customers immediately roll out. Testing means like, hey, run a 30-day, like and see what it does. So testing is really, really quick. But my first gut reaction is, folks, who is using what? Can we just have a quick inventory on that? And where are you using it? Who of you have a higher ACV, like significant, like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or something like that? Okay, so we see good use in a solutions architect, like in a technical resource, sitting on the call, listening, and SOC compliance and so on, which the AI system will give a more accurate answer that human beings cannot. Doesn't mean that it's the legal right answer, because you can say, hey, whatever you hear on today's call is not reflective, but it gives a proper answer. And the reason why we see that, think about a half an hour call, half an hour to a 45-minute discovery call. How many questions do you think remained unanswered from the customer's perspective on a 45-minute discovery call? Yeah, so it's between 7 and 8. How many questions are then answered in the follow-up? 1 or 2, right, at best. So what we have left, is that approximately 5 to 6 questions are left unanswered that the customer has to figure out on their own. That's where AI really applies really well. Where you go? I'll come to you next, but first this gentleman. You were right? Yeah.
Yes.
Have you heard already about cross-company agents?
Have not, and I'm telling you right now, everybody is hella scared about the security implications that it has, right? So yeah, so I haven't heard that much yet. I can't. No, I haven't yet, but I'm certain that soon enough.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And the gentleman is on the other side. 9,000.
You gotta work out. Yeah, so it was actually on your prior point. I've been thinking about that a lot, actually. You have a call, you do a demo, there's still 1,000 things. The buying process of schedule another meeting, email, they don't like it. So what's your perspective on that? There's like digital sales rooms, but those are live chatbots, but using AI, and that, I've been thinking about it, but I'm curious of your thoughts on that.
I think it's a broad, it's a question that has a lot of answers. So first and foremost, human beings every now and then like to chat. It is 90% of us doesn't want to chat more than 5 to 10 minutes. So what we're noticing, that 1 hour calls that we normally would have end up being shorter conversations with an AI that get approximately the same information, okay? Less than 10 minutes, and it hovers between 4, 5, 6 minutes, and I'm sure that there will be a few longer. But what we notice is customers don't want to spend an hour on the phone with you, right? Number one. Number two, almost every customer, when they want an answer, they don't want to wait till tomorrow. They kind of want it now. And so having that whole schedule delay actually is a delaying of the sales cycle, which we believe is a weakness in the sales system. The people are the long pole in the tent, as they say. Like, you're holding it up. Hard to tell a salesperson that they're holding it up. They go, no, we're creating exclusivity. Like, dude, seriously, it's costing us money right now. Just make yourself available, right? And then the third part is, I have people say, I don't want to look available. Because, I just want to hit my quota. And so, the immediate response is something, but also the 24 hours a day response. What we think is that we all have approximately the same work cycle. We don't. There's a lot of people who work at 4 o'clock in the morning till like 7 or 8, and then they take care of kids, and then they do that at the nighttime again or something like that, right? So just having an SDR, for example, or a salesperson available between 9 to 5 is essentially limiting your window very much, right? So we see that. The amount of the product, we generally with human beings, we think of productivity as 8 working hours. So first of all, it's already an hour gone for good reasons, eating. But the amount of time that you'll see, an AI bot works 24/7, right? So the capacity goes up significantly. And so that things that we noticed. The thing that I saw from the folks from Nepal, Where's the gentleman? There you are. What I really like that we did by ourselves, but we figured this out, but I want to encourage everybody to do this, is when we brought in, we have now 3 AI agents, Jack, Celeste, and Jack inbound and Jack outbound. And no, we don't have a Jack off. I can say that joke down here, but like, I stepped on that line multiple times at this point. Okay, but we literally, during the all hands meeting, we literally have an introduction where we introduce Jack and we tell the team this is what he or she will be doing. Why? Because we don't want people to feel like this person is in threat. Just like this is just Jack and Jack is going to be doing this. The second thing, again, only to affirm what the folks from Nipel already said, is like when we removed that capacity from the SDR, it's not like we fired the SDR. What we did instead, we just applied them to more meaningful tasks that needed to be done in the company that were more beneficial of human contact. All these things went quite quick, right? And so we have the first 3 agents, and we're testing. So we'll see what that we'll see where it lands. But the big thing here is this, and I saw it when Jeroen spoke about it, when folks at Nipel spoke about it, when you spoke about it. I noticed that every time when we currently saw this morning or this afternoon, the good use morning my time, morning my time. When we see the good use of AI, you almost always hear the process was already in place, and then when you apply it, we don't hear like, oh, we were really bad at outbound, and then now we use AI and it's going great. No, because your process was already broken, right? So you often see they fall back on proven processes. One more thing that we see a huge demand from customers when they come to us that I keep asking for, that I had stiff-armed them, that I completely said was not going to be the case. I was absolutely dead wrong on that. My head of sales, Lauren, said you were wrong, and I had to admit that I was wrong. It's not easy. No, that's not. And so is that enablement. We see a huge demand for AI agents that simply help people find the content, train the content, and so on. Like just a person inside the company that our own people can talk to about, hey, tell me what's going on. I'm meeting in that room. What do I need to know? That internal, it's not helping with growth directly, but it just solves a huge problem inside the company. Yes, first, second, closer, further.
If you look from a bow ties perspective, what process would you really recommend by replacing AI, and what process do you really think human intervention is needed?
You mean from the bow tie roles perspective? Yes. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that really helps where, there's a couple of places where AI helps. So AI has 3 dimensions it can help. It can lower cost, dimension 1. Hey, we do something, but instead of paying $80,000, we pay $5,000. Simple enough. Number 2, it can do things in volume. It can do things like more. It sends more email. It works harder. Well, it works 24/7. It does more. The combination of that is like it does more at a lower cost is what we all love. The point, and I'm going to go to a 3rd dimension, but it does more at a lower cost. More at a lower cost, it's not like it's 10% lower cost, right? It's like 20 times or 10 times lower cost. That by itself becomes a business differentiator. Because if you have a resource that your competitor doesn't have, and that resource works at 1/10 of the cost, that's what gets multi-time billionaires very attracted, right? That's what they launch entire businesses on, right? And so that is happening right now. So you can use it as a competitive advantage.
Then you assume that the quality is the same.
And therefore, factories figured out that if you only look at volume and you look at cost, then you end up with shitty quality. So factories came to the conclusion in the 1960s when TQM Total Quality Management came out and so on and so forth, that if you don't keep a hold of a quality, then we get into trouble. And there comes the 3rd axis. The 3rd axis is quality. Now, if you think of that as a 3-dimension, right, you'll see we're only working in the 2-dimensional world of cost and volume. We're now entering the 3rd. I heard you say you're speeding up. Sometimes customer success, one of the quick things that customer success wants is speedy response, right? That's a level of quality. And an AI agent can increase the quality by giving a quicker response. The nature of responsiveness in generally is not that you give the final answer. The nature of responsiveness is that you actually want to hear that they're on their way. So when you get your Uber Eats or something like that, right? You don't want to know I'm there. You want to know, hey, I'm 5 minutes away. I'm 2 minutes. Responsiveness. AI systems are extremely capable of being extremely responsive, which calms down the user on the other side. Last question, because I know food is waiting. I saw one person. Yes, there you go. Last question. I refer to this as the man with the most beautiful hair in the room. So there you go.
Thank you so much for your energy and lecturing, reflecting on the market. Losing your microphone, so you will not be able to answer. But the bow tie model is a really interesting approach to improve the forecasting or the probability of your business. However, you also see that once you scale, like if you're a 6-figure business or an 8-figure business, like the saturation of the market, or maybe you'll expand to a different market that the conversion rates will not translate. What's your scope, your view on that?
Okay, so as businesses scale, they have, for natural reasons, forms of diminishing returns, right? Like the line eventually tapers out. What you want to know is what your taper out rate is. So it's referred to as a 2-degree polynomial. 2-degree polynomial, it can pretty accurately predict. Once you go on the direction, it can tell you what the next markers are. What most people forget about data, it is not only depicting the situation that you're currently in, it is depicting the situation that you most likely will be in. It's forms of a projection of where you're going, which allows your company to make advanced moves. If I see that you're going off like that, and I can predict what the next 3 years like, folks, I can already start hiring, launching a new GTM, testing new things out. Now, I'm going to go take that a different direction right now. What we are all working on today in the bow tie, or in the funnel if you're still catching up, if you're there, you essentially are using today, all data appears to be at the same level. So if I ask you what's your CAC to LTV ratio, I might as well ask you what the win rate is. But those are essentially things that happen at different layers of data. So at the bottom of this data layer, you have something called volumetrics. Oh, a volumetrics, how many leads did we get in? How many deals did we close? Foundational layer. The next layer, you're going to get conversion rates. They go like, oh, there's a win rate. And then as you go up one layer or another layer, you eventually end up at ratios. And ratios are like CAC to LTV. Both are compound data. Now imagine all these layers, right? Imagine, where do you think you need to run your business on? Because I can tell you, you need to run the business probably not at ground level, but certainly not at CAC to LTV level. Why? In order for those metrics to propagate, takes time. And what we see today is that many people, many CEOs who grew up in the finance world operate their business on CAC to LTV level. That is such a high level that it's like trying to sail a ship with 5 minutes delay, or trying to drive a car with a 5-minute delay of steering, right? You're never going to get it right. You're always going to be behind. So you got to go 2 or 3 levels down to more of what we call a GTM level. You want to know, okay, how many leads are coming in, what's the processing, what did it cost me, and so on. And you want to make sure that you take action on that. Today, we only operate at one layer, and you need to see that as if it's almost like you double click on it and you have layer after layer opening up, and it allows you to rethink it. Note that for investors, it is right to operate at ratios, but that if you think of the nature of a ratio, it is very deceiving. So for example, if I want to calculate the productivity per rep, I can easily create a great productivity per rep by firing half of my reps. Productivity per rep goes up, but it didn't do anything to the business, right? So ratios are more like shorthands in order to determine, what needs to happen, because a VC cannot come in and have a detailed conversation with you in 30 seconds, right? They quickly look at it, okay, that seems off, let's double tap on that. But that doesn't mean that metric is really well good use on it. That level of insight, your data model insight, your question, tells us that we're entering a new world of depth on businesses, that is going to suit well and that AI is going to really help us. Before we go, I am absolutely, I don't know if the term HDAD is down here, and also if you know the term AF. Do we all know the term AF? As fuck. I mean, like, I am over the top on this. Could you, in a second we're all gonna leave, could you please be so kind to pick up the bottles on the floor and then when you walk out, drop that off over there. That would be just, I'm seeing everybody's gonna trip on that. I see Coke on the floor already. I go, oh, this is a beautiful floor that Jeroen put in here.
Well,
with that said.
thanks a lot.
Oh.